Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining the stream, for your attention, and of course, many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on or will watch video of this stream in recording. Today is, of course, 20th of May. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news and some major developments, and hopefully you will find this episode informative and useful. I will, just a reminder, members of our community, that after news segment, which is going to be in the first part of the stream, if I will receive through donation platforms where I have accounts, any donation with a question or commentary between the streams, and I have morning and evening stream. Then, of course, after news segment, I will react on these comments or the questions, and I will highlight them during the stream. And also around, by the way, during the stream itself, members of our community can use a super chat or rant feature on Rumble, because my channel is monetized there, and of course I will react on that also. And one more thing, dear friends, sorry it taking long, but to avoid any confusion, I will just say for members of our community that if they are looking for a full video of this live stream, on Rumble it's easy. All videos are right next to each other, no matter it's a live stream or pre-recorded. But on YouTube there is directories, and if you scroll on my page, you can see a playlist of my live streams, all my live streams, and also you can just click live, and all live stream videos will open that I have ever made, and there is quite a lot of it there. So that's been said, dear friends, let's go through some news now. And first, of course, I will share with you latest information that is available about yesterday's Trump-Putin talk. I did share some information about outcome of these talks right before I end yesterday's evening news live stream. But anyways, I think many members of our community will find it interesting to know what was the first reactions and the rest. So straight after a phone conversation with US President Donald Trump, Russian president, for a short time, for a couple of minutes, spoke with journalists, and he stated that Russia is ready to work with Ukraine on memorandum on future peace treaty. Let's go for a little more details through this news here. So Russia is ready to work with the Ukraine on a memorandum on a future peace treaty, which may also include issues of ceasefire and principles for resolving the conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin told the journalists following a phone conversation with US leader Donald Trump. We have quote here from Russian President: Russia will propose and is ready to work with Ukrainian side on memorandum regarding a possible future peace treaty with the definition of a number of positions, such as, for example, the principles of settlement, the timing of their possible peace agreement, and so on, including a possible ceasefire for a certain period if the relevant agreements are reached, Putin said. And also he added that shortly after his statement, either Peskov, press spokesman of the Russian president, or his aide Ushakov will share with public additional information about talks that took place between presidents of two countries. And that's exactly what happened. Shortly after, aide of Russian president Ushakov made additional statements about conversation, and I posted about it on my Telegram and Twitter X page. Some members probably saw it, some might not, but anyways, let's go through details here. So key points from Ushakov on Putin-Trump call. Putin and Trump spoke for 2 hours and 5 minutes, quite long conversation. This was their third conversation since Trump took their office. Ukraine, and I remind you, dear friends, that during the Biden's presidency, there was almost no communication between two countries. not just on the level of presidents, but basically there was no communication practically in any level, which was obviously significant setback in many ways. Ushakov also stated that Ukraine issue was discussed in depth during the conversation of two presidents, including several notable details. No timeline for a ceasefire was mentioned. The conversation was personal and candid, with both addressing each other by the first name and frequently diverging from their script. So conversation was friendly, on friendly tones. I can assume from this statement of Ushakov. Presidents discussed a mutual prisoner exchange, 9 Russian citizens for 9 American citizens, which is obviously a step forward to improve relationships between two countries. And I guess soon two sides will work out this topic of exchange of the prisoners. Both presidents agree on the need to normalize US-Russian relations, which is a good sign for sure. Ukraine conflict and their settlement process were major focus during their conversation. Putin acknowledged Trump's positive role in getting Kiev back to the negotiation tables. And this is also important, dear friends. Putin reminded Trump, if it was needed, that it was a Kiev regime that walked away from negotiations that was taking place in 2022, almost straight after a special military operation began, initially in Belarus, and then these talks continue in Turkey, in Istanbul. But unfortunately, we know what happened next. Number of high-ranking officials from US, from UK get involved, and I guess on the orders of globalists and US neocons, and they derailed these talks, during the which some even preliminary agreements were reached between Moscow and Kiev. So, Putin thanked US president for his role in getting Kiev back to a negotiating table. Trump said he sees Russia as a key US trade and economic partner once the Ukraine situation is resolved, which is also a good statement. And there is plenty of areas, obviously, that two countries can cooperate in economical terms. I would not count their cooperation can happen in any direction, from energy sector to agricultural sector to you name it. In space, by the way, in space explorations and so on. Presidents agree to continue their dialogue on all issues, including Ukraine. No date or location has been set for a future in-person meeting. This is unfortunate, but this point demonstrates that, Moscow and Washington are not yet in a place where such a face-to-face, in-person meeting between two presidents might take place. More work needs to be done to prepare ground for it. Ushakov also highlighted their unusually long duration of the call, noting that neither leader wanted to end the conversation. So, which is also some nuance that is interesting stuff, for sure. Maybe two presidents really are getting along quite well. I mean, it's possible, isn't it? We don't know some inner works, isn't it, of relationships between two leaders. But this is a statement, some key points from Ushakov's statements, and I think, overall, one may assume that talk was a positive. I was not expecting any breakthroughs, and no breakthrough had happened, understandably so. But two presidents talk, two presidents of major nuclear superpowers, and it's something of positive, and we should acknowledge that. And also, RT is reporting that no deadline is set for Ukraine peace memorandum. Russian president mentioned during his shorter appearance before journalists after a conversation with Trump that memorandum will be worked on. But I guess this morning press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, was asked about it, and that's his reaction. No deadline set for Ukraine peace memorandum. Kremlin has not set a deadline for drafting a memorandum with Ukraine, outlining steps towards a peace treaty, according to president's spokesman Dmitry Peskov. Everyone understandably wants this to be done as quickly as possible, but certainly the devil is in details. Peskov said he noted that Moscow and Kiev would each draft their own versions of the memorandum, after which both sides would face difficult negotiations to agree on each single point in this text. So obviously it will take some time. So it is basically even impossible to set some time frame for it, right? But at least, as Russian president noticed during his talks with Donald Trump, at least Kiev regime is back to negotiating table, which is already something of positive. And after all, we should keep in mind that during the recent Istanbul negotiations between Moscow and Kiev, agreement was reached to release 1,000 POWs, which is a big deal, obviously, and soon, maybe even before end of this week or next week, potentially, this exchange probably will take place. And of course, dear friends, Trump himself also, excuse me, also spoke about this phone conversation with the Russian president. First, he posted on his Truth Social about it, and then he also commented on the matter and on Ukrainian crisis in the White House, in Oval Office during one of the meetings. First, let's go through some details of Trump's post on his Truth Social network. So just completed my 2-hour call with the President Vladimir Putin of Russia. I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations towards the ceasefire. I mean, this is quite a statement to make immediately. I mean, Russia, formally speaking, Moscow and the Kiev regime is already in the talks. So these talks have started a couple of days ago in Istanbul. So I'm not sure this was that necessary to put this word immediately, that Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations. But okay, Trump wanted to, make sure that everyone understands that this is, his talk with Putin is something of big importance. Okay, we get that. Anyways, let's continue. More importantly, an end to the war also will be, of course, part of negotiations. The conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties, as it can only be because they know details of negotiation that nobody else would be aware of. The tone and the spirit of conversation was excellent. If it was not, I would say so now rather than later. Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over. And I agree, there is a tremendous opportunity for Russia to create a massive amount of jobs and wealth. And dear friends, I think there is a tremendous opportunity for US in cooperation, in economical cooperation with Russia, because I don't know about US, but Russia is already experiencing a huge deficit of workforce, right? In US, situation might be a little different, but here in Russia, by the way, there is a lowest unemployment rate ever, and millions of people from neighboring countries from all over the world are coming to Russia to work, because Russia experiencing, due to overheating of economy, and due to fact that all the enterprises are working basically almost 24/7, they need more people. Russian economy needs more people, and therefore, of course, economical cooperation between two countries will benefit Russia also, undoubtedly, but it will be extremely beneficial for US too, and this should be also acknowledged. Its potential. Its potential is unlimited. Trump spoke about economical cooperation. Likewise, Ukraine can be a great beneficiary of trade in the process of rebuilding their country. Negotiations between Russia and Ukraine will begin immediately. I have so informed President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, President Emmanuel Macron of France, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of Italy, Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany, and President Alexander Stubb of Finland. I mean, why Finnish president was engaged in these talks? There was a simultaneous conversation, as far as I understand, straight after Trump spoke with Putin. I guess he had a phone conversation with Zelensky and a number of European leaders, and among them, Finnish president was also, and this is kind of strange. I mean, really, is Finnish president is that important? I don't know. I have nothing against Finlander being involved in potential de-escalation, really. But I don't think these people that Trump mentioned here are about de-escalation. It's exactly the opposite. They are all Russia haters and they're all war hawks, right? But anyways, the Vatican, as represented by their Pope, has stated that it would be very interested in hosting the negotiations. Let the process begin. Trump stated all this stuff on his post on True Social, and after that, as I said, he also made number of statements in Oval Office. Let's go through the statements also, because I think it is important. We are talking about president of a major nuclear superpower, isn't it? So there is a chance to achieve something. Trump shared details of conversation with Putin. U.S. President Donald Trump summed up the results of the conversation with the Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Among other things, he expressed confidence that significant changes will occur in the settlement of the conflict in Ukraine. And the key statements from the White House chief: the Ukrainian crisis needs to be resolved. The channels of this are high. Chances of this are high. Putin intends to achieve this. Russia is not wasting time in negotiations. The U.S. will cede its role to Europe in this process unless there is a significant progress. Trump also said that he thinks something will happen. There are very big egos involved, but he thinks something is going to happen. And if it does not, Trump said he will just back off, and they'll have to continue negotiations. That's their situation in Europe, and it should have stayed there. So he once again highlighted basically that this confrontation is not really U.S. conflict; it's European issue and should stay as a European issue. And I guess Trump still on the page that he wants to pull off U.S. from this proxy war. Maybe I'm misreading something, misunderstanding something, but that's the impression that I have. And great if my reading of big picture in this on this matter is correct. Trump also said that Washington has a certain red lines on the settlement issue, but they will not voice it so as not to complicate their negotiations. He also said that there will be no new sanctions against Moscow for the time being for the same reason. Okay, I don't think any more sanctions will have any influence on political and principal stance of Russia, no matter what kind of sanctions White House may come up with. But okay, Trump is not escalating despite the expectations, and the Western media outlet was even writing about it, and I reported this in previous updates. So okay, good. There is a chance to achieve something, Trump also said, and if you do that, you can also do much worse. But maybe the time will come when the introduction of new sanctions will happen. Okay, but Trump is still Trump, isn't it? He had to act like a gangster. We are not imposing sanctions now, but we might do it tomorrow or day after, because we have to act tough constantly. This is bad, man. They should stop acting. Really, they should be more focused on real politics and diplomacy. That will help better. And also a few statements from Trump. He cannot yet say whether Kyiv is doing enough to achieve ceasefire. There will be no American military contingent in Ukraine, but this does not mean that the stakes for the United States there are not high. Zelensky is not the easiest person to communicate with, Trump said. So interesting statements from Trump. And what we can take of this conversation between two presidents? Well, first of all, it is clear that two presidents are getting along quite well. And sometimes in politics, this is important. Personal relationships. Also, but this is not the main take, right, for this from this conversation. Also, seems like Trump and his inner circle and forces that are behind the current administration, in my personal opinion, are still on the page of de-escalating with Moscow, and they're pulling out US from this proxy war that globalists are waging against Russia. And that's why Trump's statements was quite chill, right? Quite diplomatic. Despite some moments of bragging about being tough and stuff, like on topic of sanctions, for example. But in general, Trump's statements were very polite, diplomatic, which is good stuff. And if Trump, his team, forces that are behind him will find courage to confront globalists. Some of their members are doing this, at least partially, but if all of them, will find courage to confront globalists and to say publicly that it's this degenerate force of globalists that are really pushing for this for escalation all over the world, including for prolongation of this proxy war against Russia, then I think it will be much easier for Washington to really de-escalate with Moscow and find some common ground. Two countries may not reach a friendly level of relationships for decades to come, although there is a potential there. But at least in upcoming years, Russia and US may reach a level of cooperation that are at least on a good working level, which will be beneficial for both, obviously. And my hope is that current leadership of US and forces, these America First forces that are behind them, are on the same page. Hopefully that is going to be the case. Let's see, we will find out. But dear friends, you're gonna love this news. So RIA Novosti is reporting that according to Western media publications, European leaders were shocked by the results of Putin-Trump talks. And if European leaders that are puppets of the globalists, if they were shocked, then I guess this alone can be good enough reason to say that Trump's Putin conversation was a success, right? So European leaders were stunned when US President Donald Trump shared with them details of the conversation with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, the Financial Times reports. And we have a quote from an article. Trump also said that immediately after the call with Putin, he told Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky about the substance of the conversation, along with the leaders of UK, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, and European Commission. A source familiar with their conversation said their leaders were stunned by what Trump told them. The article states, so of course we're not going to learn details, exact details, what Trump said, but he himself actually mentioned in his post in Truth Social that he had a conversation with the leaders of these countries, European countries and also European Commission. In addition, the publication states that the head of the White House had decided to leave the role of mediator between Ukraine and Russia, and the two countries will now only have to conduct direct negotiations. So basically, maybe, this is my guess, dear friends, maybe Trump told European leaders that he knows perfectly well that are under control of globalists and are working with them on whatever geopolitical agenda they have. Maybe Trump told them that, you know what, we are walking away. We are pulling out US from this proxy war that you started, and now Moscow and Kiev have to negotiate directly, and you do whatever you want to do, but we are walking away. Maybe in some ways this is what Trump says, and that's what horrified European leaders. Probably we will learn some more about it. Most likely, some media outlets will share some more details about this conversation between Trump and European leaders, and I'm really interested to learn what he said precisely that he shocked these globalists, European globalists. Also interesting point is that what I just said. Maybe Trump and his inner circle, maybe forces that are in support of them, are bold enough now. Maybe they feel that they are strong enough positions to actually confront globalists. And maybe Trump started this confrontation, this direct confrontation with them. First, behind the scenes, during this private phone call, sort of. And if my judgment is correct, then soon probably we will see some open statements from US that will criticize globalist agenda and regimes in Europe that are working together with globalists, are controlled by globalists, and pushing for their agenda, including for prolongation of this proxy war against Russia. Let's see. But definitely something interesting is and important is happening. We might not know details yet, but clearly something big is there. And also, by the way, you probably will find this news interesting, that straight after a conversation with the US President Donald Trump, and during that conversation, as I already mentioned, a number of European leaders were also engaged there. Zelensky made a couple of statements, and for example, he shut down talk of neutrality of Ukraine, neutrality for peace, after asked by Turkish reporter. He spoke with journalists, and Turkish reporter asked about neutrality for peace formula, and he shut down this conversation straight away. We have a couple of quotes here. So Ukraine already has a status, Zelensky said, and this status of Ukraine is written in the constitution. And by the way, Kiev hardwired NATO aspirations into a law in 2019 in the constitution. So therefore, right now, neutrality is a sort of unconstitutional. If anyone will push for neutrality, then that will be unconstitutional idea. So Ukraine have to work through its own constitution. Basically, Ukraine has to make some changes and go back basically to previous iteration of constitution in which Ukraine was mentioned as a neutral state. But right now, straight after talks with the US President, Zelensky went to journalists to say that he is not even considering neutrality for peace formula, and he is still pushing for NATO. And this is not all, by the way. Zelensky also went to say that Kiev does not intend to withdraw troops from DPR, Zaporozhye and Kherson regions. And as we know, Russian demand is quite clear. All new Russian regions have to be free from enemy forces. So Zelensky clearly is kind of openly entering a conflict with White House. I think that's what is happening, because this messages was not really for Moscow. I think from Zelensky, these messages from him and from the globalists. I am quite sure he was, consulted by his globalist masters. These messages are directed for Washington first of all. So let's go through this news here. Ukraine does not intend to withdraw troops from their territories of the DPR, Kherson and Zaporozhye region under its control. This was announced by Vladimir Zelensky following a phone conversation with US President Donald Trump at the briefing broadcasted by his office. We have a couple of quotes here. "No one will withdraw our troops from our territories," he said. "No ultimatums. If Russia sets conditions for the withdrawal of our troops, it means they do not want ceasefire," he added. Wow, what a genius. Russia don't want ceasefire. Russia wants end of conflict. Russia wants root causes of this crisis to be addressed and sustainable peace to be reached. Russia never said that it's interested in some temporary solutions, especially in this 30-day ceasefire that globalists and globalist controlled regimes in Europe are pushing so hard for how many weeks now, because Moscow knows perfectly well that, and everybody knows that globalists are desperate to achieve a break for their proxies in Kiev, right? Because they know Kiev regime's stance are weaker and weaker, and most importantly, Kiev regime's forces are in desperately need of break. That's what is going on. So of course Moscow will not give her this break to enemy forces. No way, right? And never promised to do so. But yet again, these statements, one should keep in mind that these statements from Zelensky that Ukraine will continue to pursue its aspiration to join NATO, and Ukraine will not withdraw, not compromise basically on during the negotiations with Russia. That's exactly what this statement of Zelensky means, that they will not withdraw troops from new Russian regions then. These messages are directed first of all for Washington. Meanwhile, dear friends, I did spoke about this news yesterday during the evening live stream, evening news update, but I think it is important in the context of all the news that I just went through, that Russia in Ukraine talks follows the principles set forward by the Russian president in 2024. So Russia in talks on Ukrainian settlement follows the position as set forward by the Russian President Vladimir Putin in June 2024. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said in a comments on the outcome of the meeting in Turkey. And obviously, this comment also came as a response on Russia, on talks of presidents of two countries. We can find some parallels there, some connections, and also we can address this news on statements from the West, right? So the position of our country was clearly articulated. What the hell is this advertisement, man? Let's shut it down. Okay. So Russia, sorry, dear friends, I cannot work out how to block all the advertising on these platforms that I'm opening. But anyways, let's continue. The position of our country was clearly articulated by Russian President Vladimir Putin on June 14, 2024. Look at how our country's systematic, principle, and logical manner has been acting in line with these guidelines. She told the reporters on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Legal Forum. According to diplomat, Moscow is showing a responsible position based on international law, the interests of the country, and the stability and security of the entire region. The spokeswoman said the Kyiv regime, on the other hand, has often changed its position. It was evident even from the recent Istanbul talks alone. One thing in the morning and another in the evening, and still another the next morning. And it is like that all the time, Zakharova said. And of course, she was reiterating the behavior of Zelensky and his representatives in Turkey a few days ago, when eventually talks between Russian and Ukrainian delegations did happen. We all remember that one day Zelensky was acting crazy, as he does quite often. He was criticizing Russian delegation and so on. He basically almost refused to agree on any talks to send delegation, but at evening time he said that yes, delegation will came. Next day, next morning, he said something different, and eventually Ukrainian delegation came. And you tell me, dear friends, how are you gonna deal with their people like that when they might change their stance, not just on daily basis, but on hour basis? I mean, it's almost, impossible, isn't it, to have some meaningful talks with such elements, isn't it? And Maria Zakharova is clearly highlighting that. But most importantly, in this statement, Maria Zakharova is saying that Russian stance did not change even a bit. Russian president in June 2024, when he was meeting with the leadership of Russian foreign ministry, highlighted points and on which ceasefire can be reached, for example, and this position is still the same. I give you some details as a reminder, dear friends, that Putin in June 2024 named the conditions for talks with Ukraine, which include the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the Donbass and Novorossiya, that is DPR, LPR, Kherson and Zaporozhye regions, and to Kyiv's aspiration to join NATO. Zelensky is refusing to do any of it, right? And he refused once again yesterday, straight after a conversation with Trump. So he is not about de-escalation, by the way. No, because his globalist masters are not about de-escalation currently. They might change mind soon when Russia will have no option but to move forward and achieve more progress on the ground in zone of special military operation. Eventually, globalists will come to the terms and they will acknowledge necessity that they have to face reality and start de-escalating. But now they are not ready for that. And Zelensky is their spokesperson, basically, right? But anyways, the Russian president outlined that no NATO aspirations, also lifting all Western sanctions against Moscow, illegal sanctions, I cannot, because these sanctions are illegal, and Ukraine's commitment to uphold the non-aligned and nuclear-free status and fully respect the rights, freedoms, and interests of its Russian-speaking citizens. This was outlined, this demands was outlined by Russian president in 2024, and nothing has changed since then. Russian position is still the same, and I don't know how many times Russian leaders are going to repeat this same stuff over and over and over again. I mean, this is basics. This is just a baseline. This has to be done. Then we can continue with the escalation. And as Ushakov noticed yesterday, straight after phone conversation between presidents of US and Russia, no face-to-face meeting between two presidents is planned for now. And Peskov, by the way, Dmitry Peskov also stated about it, that meeting between the Russian and US President Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump is not being prepared at this point. Understandable situation there, because two presidents, they are busy, right? They're not going to meet each other just for a photo, right? Or some PR stand. They don't need this. So therefore, once representatives of two countries will manage to reach some agreements that will help two countries to de-escalate, when there will be something on the table, Of course, two presidents might meet at that point and basically sign up for whatever has been prepared by negotiating teams of two countries. But obviously, two presidents not going to matter for nothing, isn't it? So therefore, that's where we are right now. But this meeting might take place, by the way. In 2025, such a meeting might take place. And dear friends, on the topic of possibility that maybe Trump's administration, current U.S. administration, and forces that are in support of them inside the United States, on topic of their being bold enough to maybe start confronting globalists, we have this report here that originates from Marco Rubio, head of U.S. State Department, neocon, by the way, but surprisingly, this news comes from him. So, world in an unusual situation when U.S. against war and Europe all for it. Top U.S. diplomat Marco Rubio, by the way. I mean, what a statement, what a headline, isn't it? And this is clearly indication that there is some rift between U.S. Political class, U.S. Influential forces in U.S. That are now allied with their administration and the globalists that are in charge of Europe, in majority of their countries at least, right? Let's go through this news anyways. So today, international relations have ended up in an unusual situation when the US is against war and Europe, on the contrary, all in. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said at the Kennedy Center board event. And we have some quotes here. I tell people we have a president of peace, Donald Trump. In fact, one of their cardinals I was meeting with the day before their Pope's inauguration said to me, it's very unusual for us. We have an American president who wants peace and some Europeans who are constantly... Well, excuse me, dear friends. I apologize. This is live stream. I can do nothing. Excuse me. It's very unusual for us. We have an American president who wants peace and some Europeans who are constantly talking about doing war stuff. So the world is kind of upside down in their minds right now. And usually it's the other way around. The top US diplomat emphasized, according to him, President Donald Trump is focused on stopping hostilities in different parts of the world and supports settling major armed conflicts as soon as possible. Rubio also pointed out that the US is indeed investing considerable sums of money in international security now, but Washington would prefer to ensure a situation in which this money could be directed to the public sector of their economy. So interesting, isn't it? Interesting statements, especially if we take in account that these statements coming from Marco Rubio, by the way, who is well known to be representative of US neocons, isn't it? That usually are all for wars, always, everywhere. So I don't know. Maybe there is some rift between Rubio and the neocons also, and he is now more adapting more like Trump's visions on certain developments. I don't know. I cannot speculate on that, but interesting statement of Rubio nevertheless. And dear friends, before I continue, let me notice that that you can, if you like my work, dear friends, if you like my channels, my programs, if you find my work interesting, useful, informative, then please consider to support her. You can do it through several means. Many of you know that you can donate through PayPal platform, Boosty platform, to this project so that I be able to continue this work. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page that I have on Boosty, and that will be great support. Also, of course, you can buy me a coffee, by the way, from a coffee platform. Through coffee platform, I created the account on that platform just a couple of days ago, and according to information on internet, by the way, this British enterprise coffee is actually older than Buy Me a Coffee platform. Difference is that Buy Me a Coffee is based in US, and coffee is based in UK. So you can use this coffee platform too, crypto, of course, and you can become a premium subscriber on Rumble, dear friends, and you can use Rumble's round feature to donate to. So there are quite a number of ways that you can support this project so that it will survive, and hopefully this information will help. Okay, that's been said, dear friends. Let's continue with some more news. And Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that Russian troops liberated Marino settlement in the Sumi region and Novo-Olenovka settlement in the DPR. I shared this information during yesterday's evening news update, but I think it is important news, important developments, so that it's worth to pay attention into this live stream, also into morning news too. And let me show you on the map, dear friends, areas that we are talking about. So Marino settlement is bordering with the Belgorod region, right next to settlements that Kiev regime was trying to occupy in Belgorod a couple of weeks ago, and they were sending their troops on the suicidal missions on daily basis. And eventually at some point they managed to sort of establish control over the Popovka settlement and partially on Dmitrivka, but Russian troops quickly forced them out of the region, and now it's the Russian troops that crossed the border and basically began creating a buffer zone in this area. And this is a Marino settlement, by the way, right next to a border, in exact area where Kiev regime was trying to breach border with the Belgorod region of the Russian Federation. And when it comes to another settlement, this is the settlement of Novo-Olenovka. This is a northeastern side of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration. In this area, Russian troops are advancing significantly, quite rapidly, last number of days, really. And if liberation of Novo-Olenovka and Marino is confirmed by Defense Ministry, we also have reports about liberation of settlement of Romanovka by Russian forces, although Defense Ministry did not yet confirm this information. Probably we will receive this confirmation today, maybe tomorrow. We all know Russian Defense Ministry is a quite conservative institution, and sometimes it takes days, by the way, before Russian Defense Ministry acknowledges progress of the Russian armed forces in this direction or that. There are so many instances of that, isn't it? When there are plenty of sources that are reporting that Russian troops completely liberated this settlement or that, but Russian Defense Ministry is confirming this progress day after or 2 days after. I don't know why, but this is a usual occurrence. So most likely, either today, either tomorrow, Russian Defense Ministry will confirm liberation of Romanovka settlement and maybe a few more, maybe a few others too. And I mentioned that Russian troops liberated Marino settlement in the Sumi region. I show that settlement on the map, and we have, in regards to Sumi region, we have this report, which is very important, that Ukraine has announced their evacuation of 202, by the way, 202 settlements in the Sumi region. So the Kiev regime has decided to carry out an emergency evacuation of the population from the more than 200 settlements in the Sumi region. The head of Ukrainian military administration of the region, Oleg Grigorov, announced. And well, this is basically almost entire Sumi region, isn't it? I remind you, dear friends, that it was a Sumi region that was used by Kiev regime to breach the border with Russian Kursk region and to occupy a number of settlements there. We all remember story of Kursk salient, which is completely liberated now by Russian forces. And Russian troops began straight after liberating Kursk salient, even before liberation of Kursk salient was complete. Russian troops began to create a buffer zone in the Sumi region. A number of settlements already are under Russian control, and I guess expectation of the Kyiv regime is that soon Russia will launch a large-scale, or let's say sectoral-scale offensive operation in the Sumi direction, and they are beginning to evacuate people from 202 settlements, which is a big deal, obviously. Nowadays, dear friends, there are speculations all over the internet about upcoming Russian summer offensive. Number of military experts are suggesting that Russia may conduct sectoral scale offensive in the Kherson direction, and Russian troops recently, by the way, achieved significant progress in the Kherson direction. Russian troops basically are in operational control of significant parts of the right bank of the Dnieper River. Also, some experts are predicting that Russian forces may launch an offensive operation in the Zaporozhye direction, where Russian troops are relatively active, by the way, not as active as, let's say, in the DPR, but there are some activity there also. After all, just yesterday I reported, isn't it, about destruction of British and Canadian mercenaries in the Zaporozhye region during the strikes on the point of concentration of enemy forces in Novodanilovka settlement, that was, I believe, and reports are that 23 British and Canadian mercenaries were killed and 7 were taken prisoner. I still did not see a video of these prisoners. Probably it will pop up sometime in the future on the internet, and of course I will share that video. So 7 of these British and Canadian mercenaries were captured, and 23 was eliminated on the battlefield. Maybe speculations are that maybe this was actually special forces of UK and Canada, something like that. I don't know. I cannot tell, dear friends. All we know is that based on preliminary information that Russian militaries have, based on some documents they find, these people were citizens of UK and Canada, right? These are 7 prisoners, by the way, will probably tell their story, and so soon we will learn some more. So I'm sharing this information once again just to highlight that even though activity on Zaporozhye front is not as high as in DPR, for example, there is still operations are taking place in this direction, and maybe that's why some experts are suggesting that Russian troops may launch summer offensive in Zaporozhye region. Some suggest that Russian troops may actually launch offensive in Dnipropetrovsk region. Some say Kharkov, some Sumi, Chernigov. Speculations are all over their place, by the way. Me personally, I'm not military expert, so therefore I don't know. I just simply don't know. I think Russian troops are well capable of launching simultaneous sectoral scale offensive operations in multiple directions. So it might be Kherson, Zaporozhye, and also Sumi, Chernigov regions, and Dnipropetrovsk region too. And when it comes to Kharkov region, by the way, Russian troops already are conducting offensive operations in the Kharkov region, and dozens and dozens of settlements already being liberated, isn't it? Soon, I guess, Kupiansk city itself will be liberated also. So this is when it comes to zone of special military operation. So 202 settlements are about to be evacuated in Sumi region, which is important news that worth our attention, worth pay attention to, I guess. Also, dear friends, several more news, and I will end this live stream on that news segment at least. Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, accuses UK, Canada, France of provoking on terror attacks. That's quite something, isn't it? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has criticized Western countries for demanding an end to the Gaza operation, seeing it as a threat to increase terrorist activity. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has criticized these countries following their statements about the possible recognition of the Palestinian state and demands that Israel and its operations in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu said, such a step would be a huge reward for the genocidal attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, and would lead to a new terrorist attacks against the Jewish state. I mean, you know what? I have a question: is Israel a democracy or it's a theocracy? Why everybody constantly is using Jewish state, Jewish state? Is it about religion? Is it about theocracy or is it about democracy? Which one is, by the way? They cannot be both, right? They cannot be democratic theocracy. It's nonsense, right? That's one question I have. And when it comes to the statement of Netanyahu, when he is accusing someone of genocide, that's quite stuff. When a person who is directly guilty of death of tens of thousands, most likely over 100,000 civilians, among them tens of thousands of children and women and elderly, when person that is directly guilty in these horrible crimes against humanity is blaming others for genocide, that's just, you know, hard to even comment on that, by the way. And I think I said quite a few times before, and you know, all I can do is repeat my take on the matter, that Netanyahu and his regime basically is a death sentence for Israel. That's what they did, by the way, with their crimes, with their genocidal criminal activity. Netanyahu and his inner circle, his regime, basically put Israel in an extremely horrible position as a state. But and you know, one day Netanyahu gonna go, isn't it? And new administrations in Israel probably will have no option to somehow, you know, at least try to rebuild some sort of a positive reputation for Israel. They will prosecute all these people, by the way. They will have no option but to prosecute everybody that was involved in the decision making in regards to actions of the Israeli militaries against civilians in Gaza. I mean, Netanyahu harmed Israel. Netanyahu and his people harmed Israel in ways that no one could, probably, in the region. I mean, share your take, dear friends, but that's what I think. These people are menace for Israel, by the way. Netanyahu and his psychopathic allies. Let's continue, and you might find interesting, dear friends, that China is about to launch world's first drone mothership, which is quite something, isn't it? So China is preparing to launch what it says the world's first drone carrier aircraft capable of releasing swarms of AI-guided kamikaze drones during a high-altitude mission. The Jiutan, or High Sky drone, is scheduled to complete its first test mission by the end of June, according to the state broadcaster CCTV. The aircraft is set to have a maximum takeoff weight of 16 tons, which is quite a lot, and a wingspan of 25 meters. So it's a monster of the drone. It can reportedly cruise at altitudes of up to 15,000 meters or 50,000 feet, higher than most common medium-range air defense systems, and has a range of approximately 7,000 kilometers or 4.3 thousand miles. The jet-powered Jiutian drone is reportedly capable of carrying up to 6 tons of munition, with the ability of release to release up to 100 units of loitering munition or small drones, including kamikaze drones, from 2 launch bays located on each side of the fuselage. And I saw some videos, by the way, some videos how this drone would operate. And I mean, it is quite impressive stuff, especially if these drones that this if these kamikaze drones that this mothership will release will initially be directed by human, and then if they will fly without any connection to the operator, based on its own AI, right? If it will lock on a target, and then even if communication is lost due to radio electronic warfare, for example, if drone will be able to pursue its target, well, that's going to be huge, isn't it? And this is, I think, this is one of the directions in which drone warfare will move, for sure. These motherships with their tens and potentially hundreds of drones on board. So something interesting, I think. And also, when it comes to China, dear friends, I will give you this news, that China's purchases of Russian pipeline gas is up by 31.6% in January-April period to $3.32 billion in terms of money, which is quite good stuff, I will say. Good stuff for both countries, by the way, for Russia and China. Their volume of Russian pipeline gas supplies to China in January-April increased by 31.6% year-on-year terms to $3.32 billion US dollars, according to data from General Administration of Customs of the People's Republic of China. Russia continues to hold first place in this indicator. The GCA usually does not provide the physical volume of this energy source when updating data in the electronic system, but Russia is a #1 supplier of pipeline gas. Turkmenistan, by the way, former Soviet Republic, is second when it comes to pipeline gas supplies to China. And Myanmar is a third, by the way, which is, little bit surprising to me. I did not know that Myanmar was that rich with the gas that it can supply China. Volumes are relatively small, I can say, because in money amount, it's like $537 million, but still, it is something. Kazakhstan, surprisingly, is on the 4th place when it comes to pipeline gas supplies to China. Only $261.18 million of gas is supplied there in this period that I mentioned. And Uzbekistan is on 5th place with $143 million of gas supplies to China in very same time period. According to General Administration of Customs, in 2024, China imported pipeline gas worth $21.1 billion, which is 8.6% more than in 2023. Supplies from Russia increased by 25% on this is last year, and reached in year terms, on annual terms, 8.3 billion, which is a quite lot of money, actually. But I'm quite sure there is a massive potential, and if Beijing will accelerate cooperation, between Chinese and Russian energy companies, I think in 3 to 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, Russia may increase gas supplies tremendously to China and reach levels of, $15-20 billion a year, in maybe even more. And this is just pipeline gas, by the way. Of course, Russia supplies China with their oil too, and with LNG. Although when it comes to LNG, of course, we should keep in mind that Russia is only beginning to become a big player on this market, LNG market, liquefied natural gas. Australia and Qatar are, top dogs in this field still, and US, by the way. US is big also. So Russia and US are, catching up with these major players on LNG market that Australia and Qatar is. And I will end, dear friends, news segment of this update now. Hopefully, you will find this video live stream interesting and useful. Unfortunately, there was no questions or the comments through any of the platforms with the donation. At least I have no information. So Anna, my wife, is telling me that there was no rant on Rumble during the stream also. So therefore, I will end this stream, dear friends. Thank you all for your attention and support. Once again, hopefully you will find this live stream informative and useful. And let me remind you that 7 o'clock Moscow time this evening, evening news, by the way, also stream on both platforms on YouTube and Rumble. I hope you will manage to join the live stream. Of course, I will share latest updates on major developments that Russian media and public will pay attention to. So this is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care. And dear friends, please, if you can, share some commentaries and click that like button in the comment section also, not just in chat, but in the comment section too, so that maybe that will help this video to reach wider audience. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.